Welcome to the Sands History Center. My name's John Hilliard. I am a volunteer at the History Center here and also the museum on Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. I'm also a volunteer for the 45th Space Wing Public Affairs Office, and I basically conduct tours through the Cape to support their visitors. This building was built off the Cape mainly to give the people that cannot get on the Cape the history of Cape Canaveral and the missile and space program here at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. In November of 2016, we renamed this building from the Air Force Space and Missile History Center to the Sands History Center. It was named in honor of Major General Harry Sands. Harry Sands was the commander of the Eastern Test Range, and he was very instrumental in setting up the museum on the Cape, and also with the Air Force Missile and Space Foundation. If you look behind me, you can see his history here from 1915 to 1993. It kind of gives you a history of his life and his experience and why this facility was named the Sands History Center. A lot of people get very confused the difference between Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center. If we look at this map, this is Cape Canaveral Air Force Station here. It's 14 or 17,000 acres here. This is Kennedy Space Center, which is 140,000 acres. Kennedy Space Center has one launch complex with two pads. They launched about 180 rockets from over there. Cape Canaveral over here, launch complex goes from 1 to 46, and we've launched over 8,000 rockets from this area here. Okay, this is the main room of the History Center. What we have in here is the launch complexes from 1 all the way around to 46. Launch Complex 1 and 2, and each of the billboards are set up very similar. We have a map showing where 1 and 2 is located on Cape Canaveral. We show where the first launch, the last launch dates occurred, and also we have pictures of the types of rockets launched from this particular complex. As we look around the room, you'll see some missing numbers. Like Launch Complex 39 is missing because it is over at Kennedy Space Center. The other missing numbers were assigned to a program, but either the program was canceled or the Air Force requirements changed where they did not need that particular complex. However, the Corps of Engineers never went back and reused the number once it was assigned to a particular program. What we have here is Launch Complex 5 and 6, and the reason I'm pointing it out, we have a lot of models around the room with different things. What we have here is a Mercury capsule, a boilerplate, which means it's the actual size. It was used as a test vehicle, fit checks, etc. However, the first man was launched in this, Alan Shepard, and 5 May 1961. He was the first U.S. human to go into space. Then we went to Gus Grissom. However, all the Mercury programs occurred here at Cape Canaveral. As we move around the room, what we have now is a Atlas booster engine. The Atlas has 3 engines, 2 booster engines and a sustainer engine. This has happened to be the booster engine, and if you look up there, you can see the 3 engines burning, and each one of them has a major thrust to get the particular payload into space. Next to me, we have a Mark II Reentry Vehicle. The Mark II Reentry Vehicle was a heat sink vehicle, which means that big hunk of metal there absorbs the heat as it comes in the atmosphere. That protects the warhead, which is at the bottom. That became obsolete very early, and we went to abrasive material, which I'll show you on the other side of the room. Okay, after we finished the Mercury program with Alan Shepard and Gus Grissom, we actually moved from there over to the Atlas program. The Gus Grissom and Alan Shepard were suborbital flights, which means they did not go in and stay in orbit. We launched a chimp, Ham, first, then we launched Shepard, then Grissom, then we moved over here and we launched Enos. He actually a chimp that went into orbit, around, parachuted back down. Then we launched John Glenn. He was the first astronaut to go into orbit. In other words, he went around the Earth and parachuted back down into the Atlantic Ocean. Behind me, we have a Titan at second stage, the Titan I second stage engine, and basically it was used on the Titan I vehicle, which was an intercontinental ballistic missile. This actually, the Titan I led to the Titan II for the Gemini program. Okay, basically around the room I've been talking about launch complexes, which are fixed places on the Cape. Now I'm going to talk about a little bit different type of facility. One is the skid strip. The skid strip was named because with a Snark missile, we would launch from here. It would go down to Antigua, turn around, and come back and land on the skid strip. And just before it landed, it put out a little skid, and it skidded down the runway. So that's how the name became skid strip. It's 10,000 feet long, and I know that because I measured it with a 100-foot tape back in 1956. Also, we have sea launches now. In other words, when the Navy finished the Polaris, the Poseidon, and the Trident program, what they did was move and launch from submarines. So we do have a launch area 20, 30 miles out here in the ocean for submarines to launch their sub-launch ballistic missiles down toward Antigua. After we finished the Mercury program, we went to a two-person capsule called Gemini. This is Launch Complex 19. That's where we launched the Gemini capsules. We had 10 Gemini flights, and you can see the astronauts up there that were launched on it. We do have a console that came out of the complex. Plus we have a periscope, which is very unique. Why do we have a periscope? Our blockhouses were a big dome. We did not have good closed circuit TV. We did not have windows in it. So what we had were 4 periscopes that pointed through the ceiling. So if an engineer wanted to see something going on down at the pad, he would come over here, get behind it, and home in on looking at what he wanted to see down at the pad. So that's why we have periscopes. We haven't used those for a number of years because we have good closed circuit TV that we didn't have back in the 50s and 60s. Okay, what we have here is a Jupiter reentry vehicle. The Jupiter was an Army program that was tested. It was an intermediate range ballistic missile. It was deployed in a couple places in Europe and also in Turkey. So it was an operational system. So this is a model of a reentry vehicle. Behind me, what we have is Launch Complex 26. That is the Air Force Space and Missile Museum on the Cape. We do have the blockhouse where the Redstones, the Jupiters were launched from. We do have models out there. We have an exhibit hall, and it is a very unique setup that we have, and we do have tours through that, and it is a place you should visit if you have time. This here is a reentry vehicle for the Pershing missile. You notice it goes all the way through the ceiling there because it's so long. And the Pershing missile was a replacement for the Jupiter. It was a intermediate range ballistic missile, and we did have the Pershing I and Pershing II. The last one over there is a Minuteman reentry vehicle. The Minuteman reentry vehicle was actually flown. This was actually flown from Vandenberg on a Minuteman I to Kwajalein. So it did go into space, re-enter, hit the ocean, sunk, was recovered and brought here for a display. This is ablasive material, replacing that big heat sink over there. And you can see how small this is compared to the Mark II with the big heat sink piece of metal on top of it. But it is ablasive material. Ablasive material are thin layers of material. As they peel off, it gets hot, they peel off, heat, peel off, heat, peel off. So that prevented the heat from getting into the warhead. We currently have 4 operational launch complexes here at the Cape. All these other launch complexes are basically, there's no launches occurring from. The first one is Launch Complex 37. It was used for the Delta rocket, the Delta Medium, the Delta Heavy, and it is an operational site, and they are used for launching satellites in space. If I go to the next one, which is Launch Complex 40, it is for the Falcon 9, and it is an operational launch complex, and it is a very active launch complex. The last one is 41. That is an Atlas V launch complex, and it is used for launching basically satellites into space on the Atlas V. The other one I mentioned, the fourth one, is Launch Complex 46. I say that is operational because we had a Minotaur launch, and I think we have another one programmed, so it is operational for launching operational systems. The other launch complexes here around the room, there is work being done for future programs. Like 36 is being modified for Blue Origin. Number 20 is being modified for Firefly. 16 is being modified for Relative Space. Launch Complex 13 now is Landing Zone 1 and 2 that is used for recovering the first stage of the Falcon 9. So when the Falcon 9 lifts off, goes downrange, after the first stage is separated, the vehicle turns around, fires its engines, and comes back here, gets over the Cape, and comes down and lands in place. If you look here, these are the legs. Those black things are the legs. So when it, just before it lands, throws the legs out, and it just comes down and settles on the launch complex. So that vehicle can be used again. I think one vehicle has been launched 6 times up to today. Okay, I mentioned the fourth launch complex. This is 46. It was originally a Trident launch complex where the Trident sub-launch ballistic missile was tested, and it was tested by NOTU, Navy Ordnance Test Unit. So they are the operational group here that supports the Navy. So they did all the testing from there. The site has been updated, and now we're launching the Minotaur from there. What we have here is Launch Complex 47. It is a launcher for launching small rockets, as you see here. It sits in that gray tube here, and as you look at it, you see that metal turns. That actually puts a spin on the rocket for stabilization. So that is basically important. We have not been using that recently, but it is available. Also, what I did not mention, we do have an Air Force gift shop here. The gift shop is in the corner there. We have patches, we have hats, we have shirts, we have books, we have models, and it is an excellent place for obtaining gifts. The last thing, around the room, we have little signs like this. The signs gives you a description of the models. So when you come and visit here, you can walk around the room. I give a little introduction, then you're kind of on your own to go around, look, and we'll be available to take care and answer any questions.